When I went into the cinemas to see Uncharted, I expected one thing: to get a very fun action-adventure movie that did not hold a candle to the excellent game series it's based off of. And you know what? I kind of got what I was anticipating. And I'll just get this out of the way right now. If you came here to see a review of me roasting all the ways that the games are better than this movie, then please just leave right now, because I'm not going to do that. While I definitely could, and while I definitely would enjoy talking about the fact that Nathan Drake, one of the video game characters with the highest body count ever, does not directly kill anybody in this movie, I feel like there's a lot of people that are already doing that, and a lot of people that are doing it better, and I just feel like that's not very constructive to this movie. So what I'm going to try and do is just pretend like this is an original movie and try and explain what works and doesn't work in that regard, and also how to fix what I would argue is the biggest problem with it. That problem being the characters and the character relationships. You see, blockbuster movies like this require a very small checklist of things that they need to check off in order to, in theory, be successful. They need a strong plot, good characters, and memorable set pieces. And this movie has just about all of that except for the characters. And I feel like there's a good reason why the characters fall short, and that's that they don't have good character-driven scenes. You see, in this movie, Nate and Sully are supposed to have a type of father-son style relationship, and that's kind of obvious because that's their relationship in the game, and this is an adaptation. And while this is, again, farly, like massively inferior to those games, and particularly that relationship, I think there is a good way to, in particular, make that relationship work. And it is very obvious that that is the central relationship of this movie with how the climax plays out. And in case it wasn't obvious, I am going to get into spoilers from here on out. You see, the big climactic moment of this movie is at the very end when Sully is flying out on a helicopter and Nate is trying. He needs a hand to get in there as the villain's climbing up as well. And at the same time, Sully's trying to carry a bag full of gold, and in that moment he has to choose Nate over the gold and throw it away in order to save him as a affirmation of their good relationship. And while on paper this sounds like a good idea, the problem is that Nate and Sully have not had enough scenes of actually interacting and getting to know each other to make that reveal and that ideal. Furthermore, this scene is also meant to show the resolution of their tense, rocky relationship throughout the movie, where they're not sure if they're going to betray each other or they're going to backstab each other, and they both, in that moment together, stick up for each other and become, the characters that we're supposed to remember them as in the game. The problem is, yet again, there haven't been enough scenes of Sully and Nate actually being hostile to each other. That mainly comes from the fact that throughout this whole movie, we've been constantly hearing about how shifty and how traitorous and untrustworthy Sully is, but he never really has an opportunity to show that. Like, sure, in the first actual action scene of the movie, the auction scene, Sully does betray Nate and leave him behind, but that's a very small moment, and also there's been a lot of time in the movie since that, so it's kind of less important, especially after the fact that Chloe betrays him, much sooner than that. And yes, Chloe Fraser from Uncharted 2, and who has her own spin-off game, is also in this movie, and if you ask me, this is where the main problem of the movie converges. The fact that there are just too many characters in this movie. I mean, you have Nate, you have Sully, you have Sam, whose influence is in the movie. He's not in the movie that much, but his influence is felt, so I count him as a character. You have Chloe, you have Antonio Banderas, you have the hitman lady, you have her two bodyguards, you have all these characters, and I feel like there's just so many of those that they're taking away from this central relationship, Sully and Nate, which, is the point of the games. And not to mention, we haven't even introduced Elena yet, and I can't even imagine what's going to happen when they introduce her. Sorry, I'm talking about the games. I know I said I wouldn't do that. Alright, let's just get back to the movie. And now, this is where the video is going to take kind of a turn, because rather than it just being a standard review, instead, I'm actually going to try and propose what I would do to fix this problem, because I feel like there's a very, very, very easy way to fix the two problems with this, as I mentioned before. The problem of Sully and Nate's relationship being undercooked, and the problem of there being too many characters. And it's very simple, actually. You just remove one of the characters. And what character is that? And, well, if it wasn't obvious from what I said earlier, I think it's got to be Chloe. Yeah, I know that she's a fan favorite, and she arguably has like the only good emotional scene in the entire movie when she's talking to Nate in the whole Undercroft area about her backstory. That was one of the only moments where characters, as I said before, there's not a lot of scenes of characters talking about each other. That's one of the only scenes where people actually have like character moments. But other than that, I think she's just a hindrance to the movie because, well, you have a franchise that you're trying to develop, so you could just introduce her in another movie. I don't really see what's wrong with that. But also, the fact that she exists, especially in the middle, it takes away from what the point of the middle act should be, which is the middle act is when our characters are either getting along or not getting along, and we're supposed to see the development of their relationships. Take the Avengers, for instance. The whole middle act of that movie is all the heroes just being on the helicarrier, not getting along, and so then by the end, when they resolve their rocky relationships, like, say, Cap and Iron Man, it feels much better when we get to see them work together. And what do we do with this empty spot of Chloe now in the movie? Well, it should also be pretty obvious. You just fill it with Sully. You just have him take all of the parts that would have gone to Chloe and all of her moments now go to Sully. Now you actually have a much more engaging moment because, like, let's say now Nate and Sully both have to go into the Undercroft in Barcelona and do that whole trial thing. Of course, you have to rewrite that so you didn't have the whole two men, heaven and hell thing. You could just change that up a little bit. I don't think that's as important. But now you can have them have actual emotional moments. Maybe instead of Nate, finding out about Sully's backstory off screen, maybe he confronts Sully about it while they're under there, in the Undercroft area, and they actually have an emotional confrontation about it. That way, now our characters are actually talking and having an interesting character relationship. Then when they find the map, and now it's Sully who betrays Nate, and then that's when we also hear about Sam, and now it's it's an emotional reveal about Sam's story because it's also at the same time Sully betraying Nate, like we've been setting up, because that's how setup and payoffs work. You have to have that eventually. So yeah, then you just have that. He knocks out Nate. Sully then goes to Antonio Banderas and offers to work with him. Blah blah blah. Movie goes basically the same way. Nate can go to the plane by himself. He can find Sully, and then right when it looks like he's about to kill Sully or knock him out or whatever, Sully can handsomely and charmingly talk his way out of it, as it usually does. Talk about how he was just using Antonio Banderas to get to wherever they needed to go, and that he was going to go back for Nate because of the whole thing with Sam, and how Sam said that Nate had some sort of clue, so he still needs Nate, which then makes sense why Nate helps him because, well, he's telling the truth. He needs Nate for something, so why would he betray him again? The plane scene can go more or less the same. The only difference would be when Nate's falling, instead of him and Chloe having to work together to pull a chute, it's instead maybe he has to fight somebody in midair, therefore making the, raising the stakes and making it more difficult. But then, he can eventually get a parachute, land in the ocean. You can still have the Nolan North cameo. I thought that was cute. I don't know. I, for some reason, thought he hated this movie, so I didn't know why he'd want to be in it. Who knows? But anyway, then, movie can keep going. You can have the map scene. Maybe now the map scene can be Nate and Sully working together to figure out what Sam wanted to say, and it can be a really good, emotional moment for both of them, and you could even have a moment where after they figure out, the clue, then Sully can say something like, wow, your brother would be proud of you or something, and it's just a cute little moment between them, and it shows like, hey, maybe they can work together, and maybe they do have a strong relationship. But then that relationship would get tested as Nate leaves without Sully, goes to the ship, proceeds the same way, then Sully shows up, and then you have what I would say is probably the only other big twist I guess I would make throughout this, is then Sully is actually evil again, and he's about to betray Nate again. And why is he doing this? You could just say it's because he needs the assassin lady's help to get the gold out. I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much. They've established that Sully, he's just a chronic betrayer, so I don't think it really matters that much why he's doing it in the end. What it matters is that he doesn't want to, and you could almost have that moment where it's the same sort of standoff they had in Barcelona, but now Nate is confident that Sully won't shoot him, so he has a moment where he's just like, could say that line of, I don't know, like, go ahead and shoot me, but I don't think you can, or whatever. And then Sully doesn't, and then, that can be the resolution of his character's arc. Movie progresses the same way, do the whole ship battle, all that. And then now, when you get to the end and you have that moment of Sully choosing Nate over the gold, now it actually feels meaningful because they've actually had a rocky relationship throughout the movie, and that's actually Sully finally completing his arc and, not betraying Nate, which is his arc. Now, does this change make the movie as good as the game? No. Nothing well. Again, I'm not going into this trying to make it as good as the game because I'm never going to make anything as good as any of the four Uncharted games, but I just think that by making this change, it makes it a good, just standalone movie and just makes it better at hitting the important beats of what a blockbuster movie like this needs to do, whether it's based off of a game or not. All in all, I think that if you just took out Chloe Frazer from this movie and replaced her role with Sully, then I think that you just have a much better, more heartfelt movie that would really hit on the beats and the strong characters that the Uncharted games are known for. And again, while I cannot stress this enough, this movie would be nowhere as good as those games and is nowhere as good as the games. It would still be a good standalone blockbuster that would be more than entertaining. Oh, wait, I guess I forgot to give it a score. I don't know. It's like a 6 or a 5. I'm not sure. I don't know. Probably a 6. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I mean, if you compare it to the games, it goes down 6 a number of scores if you compare it to the game. But as its own movie, it's like a 6. It's fun.